Stop overcomplicating change and start undercomplicating it, and you'll do things you never thought you could do.
This is Changeability. I'm Julian Mather, and mastering change isn't about being fearless or gifted. It's about building a skill set by working on a few basics a little bit every day. Today's guest is an MC, he's a host, he's an event producer, he's a video communications guy, he's a presentation coach, and a lot more. He's renowned for high energy, intelligence, quick wit, and the ability to read an audience. Now that's interesting. So I'll welcome, hello Andrew Gill.
Julian Mather, what a pleasure to be with you in this screen.
Yeah, now it says that you've got high energy. I've got that.
Yeah.
But you've got intelligence and quick wit, which honestly, I don't have. I've got one of these minds, which is like, you ask me a question and I'll go, let me put it down here and I'll come back to you in 2 days' time and I'll give you an answer. And so, I can stand on stage and talk in my domain, but generally I don't have intelligence like that. And MCs like you, most of them I've met do. You have these minds which are like fast processing computer chips. You can put the information in there and you can spit the stuff out and make it all sound intelligent.
Yeah, but my sense about that is that's very kind, but the reality is, and you might know this from your performing space when you're a magician, the idea is you still have to react, don't you? And so in that moment, you need to react, not to say it's the best thing, but you have to keep things going in real time. Now, you're talking about that slow burning idea. Often you come off a stage and think, oh, you know what? I could have said that, or that would have been nice. But in the moment, that's what people appreciate, because people don't like being up on a stage, do they? They don't really like it. And if someone else is up there and you're conducting the traffic, or you're stopping the traffic, or you're letting the traffic go again, oh my goodness, someone went through the red light, those moments, that's what it counts for. So, yeah, but you also have to prepare, don't you? You have to prepare, like you when you're going to see a client or when you're going to see an audience. You know the kind of people you're going to be with.
Yeah, and it's very common in speaking. I remember when I was in Toastmasters. I did about 6 years in Toastmasters, and I learned a saying there, and it's so true. You always give 3 speeches.
Yes.
It's you give the one that you rehearse, you give the one that you present on the date, and then you give the one that you do on the way home in the car. And the one that you do on the way home in the car is always the best one. You always know exactly what you would have said then. So it is just part of the learning process. Listen, I'd love to explore with you this idea, and I sent you a few notes on this about, this thing I say generalist is the new specialist, is a new type of specialist. So if you want to be valued, be valuable. Who's valuable in a fast-changing world? People who can change. So one of the things that I used to do was I used to always say that I was something. Like I had this idea of a noun or a verb. Are you a noun or are you a verb? And I was always a noun. I was a cameraman, and that's what I did. But when I started exploring this idea, what do I actually do? I make pictures. I tell stories with pictures. I tell stories. So in my base level, as a verb, I tell stories. And then that opened up a whole new world for me. I could tell stories with magic tricks. I could tell stories on stage as a speaker. Now, given that you are an MC, video comms, you have a business stagecraft, you do voiceovers, you do a whole lot. Flesh that out a bit for me.
It's funny, when you are listing those things, Julian, I remember a long time ago, in the good old days when people had business cards, there were a few fabulous performers, and they listed everything they did. They opened bottles with their eye. And in some ways, the mystery was nearly gone. And I always think when I'm actually listing what I do, because you're trying to cover all bases, aren't you? And I love what you came up with, this idea of, are you a noun or are you a verb? And, if I'm just, the noun person, I started off like you. I was a magician, MC, you could say event producer, something like that. And then if you go into that more I kind of struggle with it a lot. One lovely Amanda Gore, who you may know, a
Yeah.
fantastic speaker, one of Australia's finest, in fact, and she described me, and she said, "You are an experienced creator," and it really made me think. This is about 2019. It really made me think about it. And what you are talking about is it's up to you. And I often look to other people to tell me what they thought I was, maybe, really, and you maybe when you're a performer, maybe when you are in front of audiences, you kind of, that maybe there's an ego thing there. But I love your idea of talking about, well, describe it differently. And I sort of came up with audience connector, energy creator, and experience giver. Now that isn't as carefully worded as your description of what you are now, but that sort of got me starting to think.
Yeah, yeah, and again, none of this, when you're trying to work out your
Mm.
path forward, none of this is chiseled in
Mm.
granite. Like always write in pencil, because what works for you
Yes.
in
Yes.
the next 6 months, the next 12 months. Yeah, Rob, it's a continually evolving process. Let me just tell you what happened only about 2 hours ago. You just reminded me something here. I'm going with Leanne Hughes, who's a speaker, author. She does these things called red carpet campouts. It's like a luxury retreat for 2 nights. So she just sent this through because we're having a group meeting online tomorrow, and I'll just read this. She said,
Yes.
choose your AI tool of choice, like ChatGPT, and write this prompt in. Imagine you're the producer of a reality TV series. You're sending 8 people to the red carpet campout, a luxury 2 nights away for dynamic consultants and founders. Knowing what you know about me, what would you say I'm, and then in inverted commas, I'm most likely to do? So I
Wow.
put that in, and I put my name, Julian Mather, in there. Where, here, hang on. I'll tell you what it wrote back. This is a brilliant. You should do this
Yeah. Okay.
about you,
Yeah.
because and this is the power of Chat GPT. I mean AI. Okay, it said Julian is most likely to turn a campfire storytelling session into an impromptu masterclass on adapting to change, complete with a surprising yet perfectly relevant magic trick.
There you go. That's pretty
Like,
good, isn't it?
that's it's a gift to have somebody
Mm.
uh,
Mm.
from the outside look at you and sum you up, and you can do it. You don't even have to leave your house to do it.
You laugh. Last year, I was, going through marketing and again exploring the world of Chat GPT, and I actually put in what are 10 reasons you shouldn't use a professional MC at your event, because I wanted to see what
Yeah,
the market kind of thought, and some of the things were cost and the person doesn't know as much about your organisation as yourself. But I love what you're saying there, because it does throw things up, and not all of us have huge, you know, frontages that maybe we are all sort of soft and what's the word? We like to know, how do we fit in,
yeah,
and that purpose. I don't know what you're like, but my purpose is and I've got 2 conferences back to back in the next 2 weeks. I love that because I'm working with people I love to work with. I've worked with this organisation for 25 years. They're lovely people. They trust me. I trust them. It's just a shorthand, and then I'm going to be with those people for the week, and that's really lovely, and that's a purpose. But some people don't have the same purpose to get up in the morning, or they don't have a job they like to go to. We're very fortunate, but we still need to get that idea of who we are for others, because that you can then knuckle down, can't you, and actually think, well, did you like what you saw? Did you like what Chat GPT gave to
yeah.
you?
That was wonderful. And then I did one more thing. I added this.
Ah,
I did a second prompt. I said, now when I use Chat GPT maybe 3 or 4 times a day, and
right, okay.
yeah, and I speak to it really respectfully. Everything's, please, would you help me do this?
Yeah.
Thank you. And we have this conversation going. So I said to it, you know me well. thank you. And it came back, glad you liked it. You've got a way of making the unexpected both insightful and entertaining. And I had to capture that.
That's right.
That's like a quote, I can use that as a as a testimonial.
Oh, exactly. ChatGPT. Well, you know what? That could be very funny. You could actually, we could have 10.
Yeah.
ChatGPT says about me. It's a bit like, the old gag about signed Andrew's mum. Was that whole, if you're old enough to remember Welcome Back, Cotter, signed Horshack's mother.
Oh, yeah,
And,
yeah.
that whole kind of gag of, but
Yeah.
but it can really help you, can't, and that can help in lots of things. I presume if someone's watching and they don't have egos like ours, and they don't need to get up on stages like us in front of audiences, but you can apply that to your job, you can apply that to your skills, you could then apply that to, I really think I'd like to do landscape design and not work in wherever I work now. And look, it is amazing. My first experience with ChatGPT was 2022. And I was setting up the old Country Road head office in Melbourne, which was an old, built around an old power station. And it was empty. It had been empty for a number of years. And we were going around, and you'd appreciate, we were going around to we had to measure every part of this building for this event we were going to put in there. And my production manager showed me some renders, and they were working on a beautiful lightscape up in the Dandenong Ranges. And he showed me the progression from the first prompt, and back then it was about 4 days of these renders. They were visual renders, and they wanted to do lights and trees. And so it started with, weird cartoony Dali trees and weird lights, to then refine back to beautiful eucalypts, Australian-style mountains. And that gave them a start for them briefing in the designer. And that, it really, at that time, it blew my brain, because, it's come so fast, hasn't it? And of course, as we prompt it, it's giving more information to that brain, which I'm very happy about, by the way. But I suppose that's the thing you need to do. You need to just make sure that what you put in isn't someone else's material, or what isn't someone else's IP or whatever. But I love that. It's free. I had to do something before Christmas, and I had to do a safety plan for something I was doing, and it came in very late because I was told it didn't need to happen, and then it had to happen. That's fine. And I just didn't have any time. And so I said, please write me a OH&S report for whatever it needed to be. And I then modified it and changed it, but it saved me probably 90 minutes. It just became a document that I could then actually amend, and I prompted it very carefully. So it's marvelous. And it frees us up, because I think, again, going back to that idea of searching creatively how you actually come up with things, it can start you, but you have to guide it. It's like maybe, I don't know what you think, but when the Mac came in, designers said this is the end of design because we will be out of a job. Now, there's more graphic designers now per capita than there were 25, 30 years ago when the Mac started to play in the game of graphic design. And I think that's the same with AI. It just enables you to create things. If you put in good ideas or really challenging concepts, well, then you'll get amazing concepts back.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's the history of technology. Technology always over-promises about whether that's positive or negative in the short term, and in the long. It always under-delivers. It over-promises and under-delivers, but in the long term, it actually over-delivers. I mean, you just think about the classic, like the internet. Everything that was going to be in the early days of the 1999. But what we've got now is just amazing. But what you said before, I want to circle back to, you were saying about people like us who get on stage, and a lot of people would see us and go, you've sort of got it worked out, and that's far from the truth, and particularly when. Me, yourself and myself, we've got our fingers in different pies. I always think, like if Leonardo da Vinci was alive today, what would his website look like?
Wow.
Talk about a polymath.
Would it be written backwards? Because he wrote everything backwards. Would have been that lovely brown duotone or whatever it was called. What was
But we're all told that, we have to niche down and niche down and niche down and find your, your one true message and have a micro audience of, devoted people. But it's really hard. It is super hard to get to that point. So, I mean, for anybody being able to, who's confused about, like you were saying, they might be working in a landscaping business now. You've got the tools of like these AI now to help you. I mean, there's so much opportunity and potential out there. I just don't think people realise it's there, and I think they're really scared about the process of getting there. But look at us. I mean, well, no, I won't speak for you. I'll speak for myself.
Look at us.
I'm still trying to work out what I'm supposed to be doing.
Well, I love this. I've been lucky to do a lot of work with the Australians of the Year, and they talk about these. They have tours of duty. And, over the time, it's been all those beautiful, amazing Australians who've been recognised across the land for being Australian of the Year, Young Australian of the Year, local hero, etc. And often we'd be doing 2 or 3 schools in a day. And because I did some funny stuff and, these people are extraordinary Australians, but they'd always ask me a question too about, how did you get to what you're doing now? And also about, is that what you want to do when you grow up? And you kind of touched on it before. I still say, I still don't know what I really want to do, but I've been very lucky. And like you, we have done lots of different things. And I think that's the thing that maybe when you are not living somewhere every day, 5 days a week, you then have more opportunities and maybe a need to do different things as well. The invention of Julian or the invention of Andrew, whatever those people are. And then you have other people who decide to become a corporate speaker or, from scratch, and they're amazing. And so there's no real clear pathway, as you say. And I just think, again, you use all your skills that you have all the time to get where you want to go. And there's always another thing, right? There's always, can I ask you a question? Did you I know you've changed from where you were.
Yeah.
One of my big inspirations was I was a magician. That's what I did. So from when I was 12, I was going off doing magic shows, and I was lucky to meet you might know these people. Sam Angelico was amazing. Yeah. He was in Melbourne. He was travelling the world. He was with, not Crowded House. Who was the group before Crowded House with the same amazing musicians in them? They dressed up in Split Ends. So, he toured the world with Split Ends and all these things. He was amazing. And then there's this other bloke called Doug Tremlett, and he was also an amazing performer. He was on the Aussie Ostrich video show as Wally the Magician. He'd do the magic hands there, and this is in the mid-'80s. But so Sam had this amazing act, and Doug had this skill set. He was directing Shakespeare because of his magic. He was doing things. He created lots of things at World Expo in '88, along with some of his business partners, who became this extraordinary corporate agency. And so for me, that was an interesting path. I liked that Doug was doing different things. I couldn't see myself doing just that one act. Let's say, in Magic World, they talk about the act. What's your act? And that transitioned into different things and producing. But that whole idea of you never know what's around the corner, and just opening up that door a little bit might get you through. Or someone says, can you do this? Or someone says, can you come and be the warm-up guy for a TV studio audience? Or can you do this? Or can you do... You don't know, right? And so going back to that idea, if you're not going out, you don't get anything back. And maybe that's the other hard thing now in this world when we are dealing with screens and people. You're not knocking on doors in the same way, but you still need to connect. Well, you and I like to connect. I mean, that's what I like to do the most of all. The more connection, the better, and that fuels me.
Yeah, no, I mean, my journey was completely different. I didn't start into the world of magic until I was mid-40s.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and so I was behind the camera for 25 years. I had what I called the second best job in the world. They would literally put a plane ticket in one hand, money in the other, kick me out the door and say, go tell people stories. I had this ringside view of life. It was just wonderful. But I had all these inspiring people in front of the camera. and they really got into my head and changed my thinking about what I wanted to do. And to be absolutely honest, I also felt a little bit insignificant behind the camera. I felt I
Right.
could be playing a bigger game. But
Right.
anyway, this is a long story. I walked away from television at the top of my game, and I took a program into schools to teach philanthropy to school children. And everyone said, "Oh, what a wonderful idea!" But it was a commercial flop because nobody wants that. And I said, "Have you got some maths? Have you got some English? Have you got some science? We need that." Anyway, I, as a cameraman, always just had a couple of simple magic tricks in my camera vest because get
So
this.
you did. So you had some stuff then,
I
right?
had some stuff
Right.
then, just really basic, but it was because, get this, apparently people don't trust the media. I know. And so it was a really good way just to build rapport with people. So when the schools program crashed, basically I'd walked away, my TV career had sailed off into the distance. I had to reinvent myself and get some money in. So I became a kids and family entertainer. And
Right.
I was terrified. You've got no idea how scared I was in my first magic show. I was when I say trembling, I mean my hands were almost, I couldn't hold things. And I always say that when I first started out, I typed into Google. This is how green I was. I typed into Google how to overcome stage fright. And
Yeah.
it came
Yeah.
back and it said, "Oh, there's an old technique. You imagine that your audience is naked." And I thought that is the worst advice ever to give
Correct.
to a children's entertainer.
Oh, not good. Not good at all. Well, I one of my most bizarre shows ever was a Christmas show where I didn't have my own car, and I had to I had to hire a car, and it was a manual car, and I didn't drive manual cars. Anyway, I was an hour and a half out of Melbourne, and I arrive, and I had to be met by someone, and the person says, "Oh, we don't lock our car here." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, it's a nudist colony." And I said, "I beg your pardon?" She said, "Haven't you been told?" And I hadn't been told. So I did a show literally imagining an audience was naked. I didn't have to. They were all
Ah.
naked. And I had to in those days, you'd take the check and give it and send it back to the agent. And the treasurer was a very elderly woman who was extolling the virtues of nudism. And I was waiting for the person to bring the check. They probably couldn't find a pen. But so I've done that. But yeah, you're right. Those, and you know what? That's one of those things. And I keep pointing at the lens. That's not good, is it, Julian? But that idea of, I think there's so much advice that people push out to other people about what to do with audiences, and you kind of have to do it. You have to
Mm.
experience it, because even if you are told all these things and you haven't done it, you make decisions or ideas because of what you think. And as you know, we know our minds can't imagine what that is going to be like until we've done it. But we are petrified by it. And so those sorts of things they're weird. I mean, I remember reading in lots of magic books saying that there was never a bad audience, just a bad performer. And then I got to work in. I did. Glenn Elston created this beautiful event called the Wind in the Willows Feast in the Melbourne Botanic Gardens. It's gone around Australia. It's gone overseas, and I got to be in the second year of it, and I did a number of years with that. And suddenly I was working with 5 or 6 other amazing performers, 10, 15, 20 years older than me, and sometimes the audience vibe or connection just was, I nailed it at the start, warming them all up, and then the audience went a bit flat, or not very often. But the point was, it wasn't until you were with other people you saw that it wasn't just you. The collective can create so much, or something that's happened if there's been a traffic accident or a delay. And so those sorts of things really come into play. And so you would know this, and anyone watching may or may not, but the more you do it, the more you understand the nuances that may or may not occur next time. And that's what happens, right? So you kept going with this amazing.
Oh, I kept going. So I did 2,000 magic shows. That was,
Mm,
over about 7 years. And, I was
mm,
just out there slogging away doing, community events, kids' birthday parties,
yeah,
schools, whatever I could. And you just worked in the most horrible of situations. I remember going to a child's birthday party once. was one person there. That was the birthday child. She was so unpopular that nobody turned up. It was heart-wrenching, but I had learned to do my show at 100%. I can do it to nobody. I can, and I literally trained by sticking up faces around a wall, and I can do it. And it's same now, and it's such good training for being on stage. I can be where, I can go to an event where they've stuck a dance floor or something in between you and the audience is out the back. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Is that I've got this, and I also understand audience psychology. What I learned when I first started was I thought the audience was out to get me. I thought it was like a bunch of hecklers who just, wanted to, look for the lame deer like a pack of wolves and take them down. And then I understood what audiences are. Audiences are tired human beings. And when an audience sits down, what they want more than anything, they want you to be good. And, whether it's in the first 10, 30, 60 seconds, they make up their mind. And if they think, this guy knows what he's doing, I'm in a safe pair of hands, they sit back and they go, I don't have to think for 45 minutes now. This is wonderful. And that's their main concern. And if you can fulfill that and add some value along the way, you'll do okay.
But that's that whole anxiety thing, right? So you've got performer anxiety, you've got audience anxiety, and then it comes together. And you've got to understand that. And there are so many, it's funny. I nearly was going to write a post a week or two ago. I saw someone who's actually doing presentation training on LinkedIn saying some things, and it should never be negative, Julian, but so much of what was being said it wasn't wrong, but to me, it wasn't correct. And I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a voice coach, but I've been around for a long time. And so the other thing I get really concerned about, I have no issue that someone starts being a magician at 40. I love that idea. But I have a concern that people who, because they might do this, suddenly they say they are an expert in presentation training or presentation mastery. And frankly, a lot of people who give this training, some are amazing, but some aren't. They're still learning themselves, and so they're now teaching other people before they finish their apprenticeship. And that example, those two examples you talked about. Imagine the audience with no clothes on. That still is said today, and I just and you're right. So much the audience are there for you, and you can certainly turn an audience against yourself very quickly. One of the things I find hilarious is a number of MCs who talk about the rude crowd and how the crowd were noisy. And as soon as I see that in a post, I'm thinking, yes, you have noisy audiences, but I don't think I've really ever had much difficulty. Now, this is going to set me up to fail as we go forward. But generally speaking, you can make an audience shush. You can make an audience quiet down. But if you understand what's happening, and I reckon this is another magic example. One of my dear friends, Raymond Crowe, you might know Raymond.
Yeah,
he's
Raymond. Yep.
Traveling the world, incredible performer in every way. He's an originator. He's loved around the world. He's been on the Letterman show and lots of other things. He's world famous in terms of magicians, and he's a beautiful friend. But a number of years ago, he SMS'd me or called me after a show, and he was quite furious. And Ray's very little, and Ray doesn't get cross, but he was really angry because at this show, there was a young woman who was on her phone, and Ray doesn't confront the audience, but he didn't know what to do. So he didn't do anything. So this is the insight about what the audience is doing while you're up there with your ego or your anxiety. So at the end of the show, he was packing down, and the same woman walked towards him, and he was going, "Oh, gee, I really need to tell her about audience etiquette." But she said, "I just have to say, you were fantastic. I was SMSing all my friends, telling them about what they're missing out on." And so, that again, in that moment when you think that the people aren't listening to you, now sometimes they're not. That's fine. But sometimes they're reacting to what's been said. It might have been something that you said as an MC, or you reacted to something. And so that's the psychology of understanding audiences that I think doesn't come quickly, and it doesn't come easily. And that's where my sense is lots of people up on the stage haven't got that either training or extraordinary experience to actually really not worry about it in some ways. But
Yeah,
they pass it on to others.
and it takes flight time. I mean, you just know, because after you've done your show 1,000 times, you can then go on almost motor memory. It doesn't mean you phone it in. You can keep it really with energy and original. But what it means is you can step out of your body and start looking at the audience, looking at, your staging. You can do two things at once. And so I was very attuned to how audiences were reacting. And I would be going, look, I know I'm giving my same show here. And one show in the morning, everyone would be, ah! And in the afternoon, it's like this. And I think, what is going on? Until I walked out and met some of the people after the show, and they come up to me. They'd been like this the whole time. They go, that was the funniest thing I've seen in a long time, because people express themselves differently. And when I think about it, I do this as well. You can tell me a joke sometimes and I'll go, oh, that's really funny.
Because you're thinking about it.
I'm intellectualizing, and I think it's a wonderful, really funny joke, but I go, oh, that's really funny. I won't laugh. So, yeah, I mean, and like you're saying, understanding the audiences, understanding the varied reactions that you get. I had something I was going to ask you before about something you said, and now I've forgotten what it is. Yeah. Anyway,
we'll just keep talking. We'll come back. We'll do it. But my sense about that what you probably had is because you were, and over the years, I've always been a massive fan of the TV cameraman. And nowadays, it's just they're often out there doing it themselves, and there's no one else. Or if you're in regional Australia, the reporter is probably the camera person and the sound recorders as well. And that makes it even harder because you don't even have anyone else to bounce off. But I actually feel the trust when you're in that little set, when there's a camera or two cameras and this crew, what you see through the lens, you know so much about a person, and then you can amplify that up when you're up on a stage. And that's a huge insight because you've dealt with the same issues as you touched on earlier. You had those magic tricks that you'd used. Did you ever work with my what's his face, Carlton? Because he was a magician.
No,
he came into because he was famous for doing a couple of magic tricks.
Yeah, but what you're saying is so true. One of the strengths I've got as a speaker now is that when I was a cameraman, I got to watch thousands of really bad speakers. I'm telling you, really bad speakers. I'm just, people at conferences, industry experts, they were part of the news cycle. And essentially what you had to do was roll the camera over the whole talk because you don't know what they're going to say or when they're going to say it. And anyway, so what you're doing is you're always looking through one eye at them. Your other eye is always scanning around the room to see what's going on. And you've got the eye in the back of your head, all right, to check what's going on out there. It's always about action and reaction. So that really gave me a leg up into the speaking world. Yeah. I was going to go off on something else on that.
No, but my other sense about watching you just online is your clarity and your little words or phrases. And I thought you were going to lead into that idea of, and by the way, everyone watching or playing on at home, this is not pre-planned, but the sound bite, if you're a news camera person or whatever, you get one of my cameramen is a lovely guy called Dougal Fanning. He's been doing it for 30 plus years. And he, now and again, he's a very quiet guy. He looks a bit like Carl Barron. And now and again, you hear Dougal saying, that was gold, right? And so, and he knows the moment. The moment. That grab that probably the editor will crunch up or the reporter will use, etc. And those little moments of gold. And that's the other point, right? So when you're doing what you're doing, people maybe don't realise how much time has gone in to each paragraph.
Thousands of hours. I'm not hiding that. The ability I've got now to have clarity in my message, particularly when I'm talking about change and when I'm doing my keynotes. has taken me 8 to 10 years of thousands of hours of sitting down and listening to podcasts, and then going back and transcribing podcasts, and then thinking deeply about that and how that connected with my experiences. And and then can I summarize that down into, because information, it goes data, and then information, and then knowledge, and then insight, and
Yes.
then wisdom.
Yeah.
We're thinking. So what I love to do is to think about getting up to this insight. What insight have I got from what I've learned and my experience? Now, can I make a wisdom bomb out of that? So can I condense that insight down, keep squashing it down to what people, people go, that's cliche. And I go, no, it's not cliche. I mean, these things work for a reason, because they're memorable and they're repeatable. It's like here, I've got a question I want to ask you here. And the title is Little Hinges Swing Big Doors. And the thing, so, after years of being a professional magician, I discovered that the greatest power lies in the simplest of tricks. So little hinges swing big doors. And it's where, can you say it in a way that people can hear it differently, because people learn differently? Can you say it for a 7-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 70-year-old? Have you got a way that's in their language and their lingo? And this just takes time, and then refining it down, and then speaking so you're confident of saying this. So I have no hesitation in telling people, if I think I stumble over my words all the time, but if you find some clarity in there, boy, I've worked at it.
Yeah, but it's a really, and this is a thing that I find, probably people watching this, I go around in circles and I ramble on because I am thinking on the run. That's how I think, and that's how I do, and that's what happens. But what I find, Julian, when, I love being behind the camera with the subject, or it might be at a conference as well. But what I find in that moment, and I don't know, you might have a view on this. When I'm editing, I always get rid of the ums and ahs most of the time, because I feel often the person, that doesn't reflect the person. Now, other people have argued you should leave that in because that's what they were saying. That was part of them. But often it's very distracting. But the other thing that I find happens a lot is they say something, and because they're in front of the camera, they say something that's really good, and then they peter off, and they might lose their train of thought because they're nervous. Often if you say, can you just tell me that again about the way you described how you felt when your horse won the Grand National, that's probably a bad example, because probably someone could be very happy about that. But the point is, if you can help them in the moment without devices, craft that, because they say it again and you give them that chance, you get that other chance that's beautiful and gold. And that's where the gold, for me, that's where the gold is. And again, what speakers do is they are crafting that. It's like, I remember years ago seeing Richard Stubbs and Wendy Harmer. And about 2 months later, I was with the same group of uni friends, and they saw them again. And they said, oh, my goodness, it was the same. And I said, no, but do you realise that? And that was they were both doing about 40, 50-minute sets, by the way. They were bang, and they were extraordinary. But the point was, that was their set. Yeah. It was crafted, the craft. And that's one of those words, if we go back to ChatGPT or computers or whatever, I always talk about the craft, because the craft, no matter what ChatGPT tells you to say, unless you craft it for yourself, unless you craft it for the audience, unless you revise it back, it won't help you, and it won't be in your own words, and it won't work for the audience, or won't be a message, it won't deliver, it won't hit them. They won't take it out and do something about it the next day. That's the craft that's very important. And that's why the human part is the craft, right? So at the moment, ChatGPT can't modulate or moderate an audience of 400 people the way that someone on a stage can, or someone playing an instrument can, or someone doing a dance. It's those moments. That's the craft. And that won't change.
And that was for the 2000 magic shows I did. After every show, I did a debrief on myself. I a written sheet with the rundown, and make my notes while it's still fresh. And occasionally I'd even do it during the show. something
Yeah.
would happen, or someone would yell something out from the audience, and I go, so I'm stopping. I've got to write that down. That is brilliant. I have no problem stopping and doing that. And I remember I want to say to you before was that you were saying about people giving training and information, way above their pay grade. And they shouldn't
Or
be
their
doing it.
experience grade. Their experience grade,
Their
really.
experience grade. And so there's a lovely saying around that. The only thing worse than singing a bad note is singing it louder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And that,
yes.
and that's unfortunately when if you don't know what you're being told and it's bad information. I mean, the most expensive information in the world is bad information.
It's true. It's true. And look, and that isn't that funny in my space. That happens a lot when you relate this. The client decided not to use a second or third camera. The client decided not to maybe use auto cue. The client decided not to have the vision fold back monitors at the front of the room. Those things, because in their mind that's a lot of money for those two screens, or that's a lot of money to have someone at the back of the camera controlling words that you're saying, whatever. Those little moments, they become big issues at the other end, or in a live space, or no, we don't have time to do sound check, or we're not going to bump in until the morning of the conference. Well, that means you've got no time to even make sure the CEO is ready to go at 9 o'clock because everyone's in a rush. All these things it is about going back to your thing earlier on about time. You're talking about how long it takes to react to something or come up with something. You need to give that space, and that's what often in this fast-moving world, AI doesn't give. It doesn't let you understand what's the word. What's that lovely word that you can have? Not experience. It's you can have. Oh, by the way, when I had to have something taken off my face yesterday, so that's why I got this big lump. I didn't have a fight with a screwdriver or anything like that. But what's the word? Not insight. Another word. Anyway, but the point is, those are the things that you should trust experts to do. We don't say to the plumber, is there a cheaper way? Because you still have to use the copper pipe to get from the hot water service to your tap. You have to. It's a bit costly, but it means it's not going to actually burst again. So that's
you just mentioned CEOs before, and one of the things. So when I was shooting documentaries. I blowing smoke up my own ass here, but I was quite highly regarded, and people would look at my work, my interviews, and go, "Wait, it just all sort of fits in there and sits really well." And people would go through my lighting kit trying to see what's he doing.
Right,
what's he doing?
right.
And it wasn't. And so what I would always say is I get people to light themselves from the inside out. So I do that by relaxing people. I spend a lot of time doing that because when you get a CEO, you can have a CEO, a captain of industry in their world. They are so confident, so alpha male. You bring them into my world, which is an interview setup, a TV setup. They start sweating and they're beating, and you can just tell they're so uncomfortable. So So this is. I'll tell you what I used to do. So I used to start the interview, and I'd let it go for about 60 seconds, and that'd be you could just tell.
They're tight. They're not sitting right. They're tense.
They just go, and so I go, right, and so I just button off, or actually never button off.
No,
I always left it rolling. Always said I buttoned off, but always left it rolling. And they said, hey, stop, and I'd get up and I'd physically walk to the person, and I'd walk around behind them, and I'd show them my hands and go palms out and go, can I put these on your shoulders? And they go, yeah, okay. And I put my hands on their shoulders and then start to firmly press down on them. And then just start just like a palm massage, just slowly. And I go, let it go. Let it go. And they'd start laughing, which is what I want them to do because it's an odd situation. They go, hey, big exhale. And there's all the tension gone. Oh, it's all like, it's out. I go, let's start again. And bang, they would just be into it. So it built trust and it relaxed them, released the tension. It's not, like it's not hard, but it took me probably 15 years to work that out.
But again, it's that knowledge of understanding that, because in those moments, and probably people watching have been maybe the person who's looking after that senior person, and they always say, they've only got 10 minutes, blah blah blah, and and of course you're going, I understand, but we have to also get it. We have to get the words. We have to make them feel comfortable, and it sometimes takes longer than that. And they're now in your hands, Julian. What you've now done, I always talk about a happy set, and we always have lots of sort of not just maybe distracting band between the crew and other things. And again, those things, making sure the person looks good on that camera, is so important, because you're their advocate at that moment. And if you're not their advocate, you can really make people look really bad, can't you?
Yeah. So here I'll tell you a quick story. We did. It was a documentary. It was a technology documentary, and we were with the CEO of a big international tech firm. Now, when I walked into this building, there were 5 big red letters up above the entrance: TESLA, and the CEO was Elon Musk. And
wow.
We walked in, and we were set up in this factory floor area, and he came in, and I could hear him coming from the distance. He was surrounded by about 4 people. They were like marketing and PR and all that.
Yeah.
And he was paying out on them. He was going, I've told you, I don't have time to do these things. Now, we'd traveled from Australia. This was in California. We traveled from Australia. So he came over, but he was really unhappy. And I stood in position in front of the camera, and I went, right, stop. And I said, come here. And I said, come here, walk over here. We walked over and we leaned against this steel bench. And I said, clearly you don't want to be here. He said nothing. I said, clearly you don't want to be here. Well, I'm going to let you in on a secret. Neither do I. So I'll tell you what, if we've got an hour with you, and I knew what he wanted, and this is like, confidence in delivering a message. If you've got the right message to the right person at the right time, it's a really powerful thing. And I knew that the thing that he didn't have was time. He got the same 24 hours, and that's what was important to him. So I said, listen, I'll tell you what, if you do everything I say and don't push back, right, I'll get you out of here in half an hour. How's that sound? And the only thing he said to me was yes. That's it. And we walked back. So I always like to say, in the world of business, I pitched an idea to Elon Musk and he said yes.
And up until the last maybe 2 years, we thought he was just an incredible person, didn't we? Now he looks like he could be a
do you know that 2 weeks ago, I removed him from my website because I used to say original captivating stories. The time I told Elon Musk to zip it, that was long, and I've removed that. Yeah. I just had a couple of people go, that's not good. There's just going to be people out there who are so opposed to him, even the sight of his name, they're just going to go, no, we don't want you.
But Julian, I can't top Elon Musk, but there's been a few times where very, very important people were so busy at events that they sent someone else to do the rehearsal. And I know that's true. That's fair income.
Yeah.
And I won't say publicly who this person was, but this person was running a big American company, a huge American company. This person was amazing at saying things and how this company should be seen in Australia. I was so impressed sitting in this meeting, but he was so busy that he chose not to come to the rehearsal. And he said it was weird. I've had people who have decided that the rehearsal was not as important as having their hair done as well. And then, you're waiting for these people to rock in and it's suddenly 4:00. Oh no, they're off having hair and makeup. Wow. Those things don't happen very often, by the way, now. But the insight is because I think deep down those people don't want to do it. Elon Musk didn't want to do it, maybe for time, maybe because he doesn't like being on the spot, maybe because there's that humanistic thing that he probably can't really manage very well, and he maybe he doesn't want to be there. But this is the point. if you have the right people, you can get the best out of everybody, and everyone's happy. But boy, there's been so many hilarious. We're doing a launch for a big American financial company, and on the day of the thing, I said, "Look, can we see the CEO just before?" And even then, the CEO didn't see us, and in the end, another person was sent out, and this person was a very jovial Englishman or Scottishman, and he was fantastic. So the crew were on hold for 2 days, thinking we'd have him rehearse. He didn't rehearse. He didn't even show his face to his staff doing this incredible launch, this incredible 180-degree launch for this whole company. Again, huge company in Australia. Fascinating to think this person had so little insight or was so uptight, but they didn't open up, which meant their whole people didn't get him celebrating this is a good news story. It wasn't even a bad news story. Incredible. I mean, that's, you and I get those insights, right?
Yeah, yeah. So Andrew, look, this is great, but we're coming
I'm
up
going to
to
be Elon Musk. At time, I've got to be somewhere else.
a good fat. We've got a good fat episode here already. If people want to contact you, how can they do that?
Well, they just put their fingers up to their temples, and I will hear them. That's how it happens. AndrewGill.com.au. Lovely to have a talk, like we're talking here. Hopefully, what you see is what you get, and I'm looking forward to being on a stage with you sometime, Julian.
Yeah, I would love that. All right, catch you around.
Thanks, Julian Mather.